Waterfront redevelopment under New Hampshire RSA 205, sponsored by yourself. Your Honor, I move that we substitute the resolution as a whole.
Your Honor, point of order, I need to recuse myself from discussion and voting on this issue.
Councilor Perry will not be taking part in this matter. So moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hindle, seconded by Councilor Mayberry. Just as a point of reference, the substitution was just for clerical. Nothing substantive changed in the resolution or its intent. It was just a typo, technical on that. And for clarification, it is sponsored by me. Basically what we have before you tonight is a resolution to create a new body to oversee the waterfront development. When we discussed this at our workshop, we also, got reports in December from the Waterfront Committee and the chair, Dana Lynch, and I think that group has done a wonderful job, and we formed that group back in April. They've come through and held public hearings and updated the charrette, and it brought in expert speakers and all the things that we've asked them to. And one of the things they've learned and approached us about was the need to have a clear path. In other words, define the ownership structure and how a developer can respond with proposals to the project, and who has the authority to accept or deny and move forward with that. What this hope, we basically looked at two issues. We talked about 162K as being an option under similar to what the Industrial Business Board does, but to go do economic development. And looking at that, there were a couple of areas that I thought may potentially be drawbacks for going with that. And I just want to discuss them because we talked about that in some length at the previous meeting. The first one was it required the city to designate a zone, and in doing so, once you designated the zone, it required that a TIF be a part of the redevelopment of the site. TIF? I'm sorry, TIF. Let me get it on here. A TIF is a tax increment finance zone. It basically says within this targeted area, all the revenues that are generated in that particular zone go back in for infrastructure improvements and going forward. That may be a good way to go ahead and move the project forward, but we want to maybe let a developer come forward and offer that up as an option or a way that they want to see it happen, as opposed to it being a requirement going forward. So that was one drawback. It was mandated that if you targeted, set up a zone and you created it, it required that a TIF would be a part of it. The second piece to it was that the advisory board would be made up of residents of that zone, and if there were no residents, then abutters. And my concern there that it would not allow us to bring in the broad-based expertise that we need and we currently have in the group that's doing the work. And I did not want to limit it by just having to go with either residents or abutters, when I think we've got a much broader pool of talent out there that we can pull in to work with the city and move this project forward. We looked at the housing authority option under 2054, and it allows the council may delegate an authority to oversee a redevelopment project. And in accordance with 2059, we can coordinate those activities with the Dover Housing Authority. The Dover Housing Authority has the ability to create a TIF if it's appropriate under that scenario, but it's not mandated that a TIF be a part of the project. So it's good that we have that available to us, but it's not a requirement. The second piece we looked at called for the chair of the housing authority to appoint the members of the committee. In this particular situation, when we were looking for members with expertise, that particular chair deferred his authority in the appointments back to the mayor and the approval of the council, because it was not a project that he wished to necessarily play an active role in, and didn't want to be put in a spot where he had to make appointments when he did not wish to chair the committee and be part of that role. So we have chatted with the folks from the Housing Authority Board, and they have agreed that they would defer that authority back to the mayor with approval from the council going forward. Very positive things. Again, we talked about a TIF. Housing Authority has bonding authority attached with it as well. They have other areas such as eminent domain that could come into play somewhere down the road. In addition, they have been involved not only in just in housing projects, as the name of the Housing Authority might imply, but they have also been involved in economic development, including the Spinelli building, the Jewelry Creations building, the Chop Shop, the Charlotte and O'Neill houses in the Orchard Street parking lot, as well as the parking lot itself, downtown Central Avenue, Chestnut Street bridges, post office parking lot, the building the state liquor store is currently in. So they do have a long history of being involved in projects that are not just housing. They also have said, I have said in this resolution, that the updated charrette is one of the governing, or is the governing document for it. So in other words, if we transferred the authority to this group, they would be governed by the charrette and the guidelines that fall within the rest of the type of project. So we do have the control that the development would have to occur within that framework. Additionally, by creating this group, we don't actually transfer title to the land, but they actually, in essence, have power of attorney over the land, similar to the way that the industrial board does out at Enterprise Park. The city still has title to the land, but that board has the ability to enter into agreements and sell off parcels where it's appropriate. The final piece that I think is important to put out there is questions have been raised as to what is the cost to the city on this project. And right now we are obligated to our portion of the bridge. And beyond that, there is no direct funding attached with this, although it allows the committee, if they feel it's important to hire a project manager moving forward, they can work out an arrangement where funding can maybe come through the housing authority, and they've considered that, where that position gets repaid upon sale of the land. If they have to do any bonding, this particular group would not be able to bond on their own. They would have to go to the housing authority board to have bonds issued, or they would have to come back to the council to have bonds issued. So they, in and of themselves, do not have direct ability to obligate the city or the housing authority without going to either of the governing bodies in those cases. I'm sure I probably left, I want to talk about the terms that I put in here. Typically we wanted to have staggered terms, but I thought it was important not to have the terms turning over 12 months from now. So my initial length of terms makes up for 1/3 of the membership to have a 3-year term, 1/3 to have a 4-year term, 1/3 to have a 5-year term. So at least this core group is together for 3 years uninterrupted. And then from there, the terms would be rolled over by appointments, and those then would be subsequently 3-year terms from that point on. This also calls for the mayor and the city manager or his designee and the executive director of the housing authority and or his designee to be ex officio members, not voting members on the project. And it does also allow for the use of the expertise of city staff to help facilitate and move this project forward. So I know I've just spit out a lot of stuff at you, but we wanted to create a resolution that covered all those questions and put together a best possible scenario for moving this forward, and I will be quiet now. Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think you left very much room for us to make any comments on in any case, but I would simply say that I am much more satisfied with this than anything I've seen before. It does cover the concerns that I had raised here at an earlier meeting, and I applaud those people who got together and worked this out, because I think we now have a model that will provide the protection that the city needs, as well as the momentum to go ahead. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, please answer the call of the roll.
Councilor Lewis.
Yes.
Councilor Trepezan.
Yes.
Councilor Deedy.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hindle.
Yes.
Councilor Keys.
Yes.
Councilor Mabry.
Yes.
Mayor Myers.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Thanks.
Passes 7.
I want to thank everybody, not only around this table, but in the back of the room, and folks who have been involved in this project for 15 and 20 years. I think this is a great step taken here, and a series of great steps that have been taken over many, many years. So, a personal thank you.